Whew. Alright, we are here. The end of the elimination stage of the major. We are now primed and ready for the playoffs starting early next week. We had our final 3 do-or-die best of 3s to determine the last 3 teams who are going to match the other 5 who have already qualified. We had Mouz absolutely eviscerate MiBR in one of the quickest best of 3s of the entire tournament. And then we got into some of the good shit, some of the best matches of the year. We had Heroic doing the impossible and sending the major favorites, the #1 team in the world, NAVI, home in an epic best of 3 clash. And then we wrapped up the night with Faze Clan versus Furia. Faze, the team who should be in position to have an era in CS2, but have faltered so many times in recent months, and Furia, a team still trying to establish themselves around one of the 10 best players in the world. Both teams in flux, both teams trying to stay alive, and at the end of it, Faze somehow mined to the deepest, darkest pits of what they had, and found just a little bit more gold, and triumphed over Furia in 3 games. There is so much to talk about, even though this is the least amount of games I'm going to cover in a single major recap thus far. And that means we need to not waste any more time and get right into it, which means you need to take a second and leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because it helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, and thank you for doing it. Also, when the majors are back on Wednesday night, I will be live co-streaming the event the entire time, the playoffs, sleeping be damned. I will be there, and you should be there, so follow me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2. But without any further ado, let's get into these games. Or what little game there is to talk about in respect to Mouz versus MiBR, because this was a blink and you miss it kind of series. I should know because I was still frantically live in my dungeon, editing, rendering, and trying to upload yesterday's recap because I'm a scheduling nightmare while this game was going on, and by the time I was finishing, this series was already basically over, and it was over so fast that the next series, Heroic and NAVI, was not set to start for almost an hour and a half after, because they block out these games expecting the series to go deep. Anyways, I don't want to relitigate everything I said about MiBR yesterday, because it pretty much all holds true here. MiBR have a massive hole in their map pool. They are in a very compromised position against better teams in the world, where they can't always rely on Insani and LionHeartZ taking over games. In a lot of ways, I find it hard to consider this a disappointing result for MiBR. They're a young, unproven roster who made top 16, and what was for many of them their first or second major appearance. They need to go now in the offseason, retool, reset, and see what they can do to develop to go to that next level, but it's very clear that the talent is more than good enough. The question is, will they continue to develop into that next level of play? I think LionHeartZ clearly shows his value that this signing is going to work out in the long run, but now you gotta readdress the small things. You've been found out. Everyone knows what to expect from Insani, LionHeartZ, Safe. It's how you continue to redefine, reevaluate, and evolve as a player about whether you will maintain yourself in that top 10, top 15 conversation. A team like Mouz, for all of their own issues throughout the year, they always find a way to make sure they are consistent, that they are going to get through matches that they should be winning the majority of the time. They work on and reevaluate and redevelop their map pool as it needs to change and adapt throughout the year. That's the difference in quality between a team like Mouz and a team like MiBR for right now. Okay, here we go. We are now into the very interesting stuff. We have Heroic taking on NAVI, and the fact is these two teams in an elimination game really sucks, because both of these teams deserve to be in the playoffs. I don't care what anyone says. They are both playoff caliber teams. Heroic are obviously one that I think a lot of people didn't rate very highly coming into this event, and obviously NAVI are the reigning champions, the best team all year, so obviously we want them both to compete deep into this. But they both made mistakes along the way, and now we're here. The last chance saloon. NAVI very noticeably not playing up to their level, Heroic trying to establish themselves as a new top 10 threat. More on the pick ban in just a second. We're going to be playing on Mirage, Nuke, and Ancient throughout this series. We roll up to Mirage, formerly NAVI's Titanic Fortress, the great impenetrable wall of NAVI, the unbeatable map every time you played against them, and somehow Heroic walk out in the biggest pressure of all of their careers and hand NAVI a ass whooping of biblical proportions, 13-3, to go up 1-0 in this must-win series. And, I mean, listen, guys, It has to be said that Navi's drop off on Mirage is like unusually severe. It's rare to see a dynastic team, or potentially dynastic team, a team on the verge of an era like NAVI, have their hallmark map suddenly and drastically drop off, where like not even 2 months ago, NAVI were basically undefeated on Mirage outside of a loss to Vitality, the other best Mirage team. And now they're just really vulnerable on it. I mean, the last 3 months, when you factor in this loss with Heroic, they are 5-6 over the last 11 Mirages. If you go on HLTV and you expand that search back to 6 months, that record drops to 18-7. 6 of their last 7 Mirage losses have come in this last 3-month stretch, going back to IEM Rio. It's gone from their best map to one of their lowest rated maps. And that is just unreal. And like when we talk about ugly losses, this was an ugly loss. NAVI couldn't buy themselves a duel to win. All of their 50-50s were just getting shoved down their throats by Heroic. Shush leading the charge, but everybody was feeding. Even Kicksan was entering like he literally had nothing to fear, and he really didn't. Outside of the occasional poke from JL or Emma, nobody else on NAVI was offering anything. Bit, wonderful, just not present. Looking slack, not managing the economy well, bad peaks, no coordination. This looked like the NAVI that was getting ruined earlier in the tournament. And this is where the pick ban comes into play, because NAVI picked a Nuke as the second map. A map that neither team really likes to pick that often, and neither team played particularly well. Both of them around the 50% win rate in the last few months, but so far throughout the major cycle, Heroic hasn't played it, and NAVI have played it, I think, twice coming into this matchup, so they threw it as a curveball, because the rest of the map pool tends to overlap quite a bit, so why not take a shot in the dark, see what happens on Nuke. And things happen on Nuke. NAVI handed it right back to Heroic, a 13-5 victory that really felt like it came out of nowhere, because NAVI looked like they had negative momentum, negative motivation, and they couldn't dig any deeper this late into the tournament, but they did. Wonderful, was amazing. JL came alive, had like 1 death through the first like 8 rounds, as NAVI decimated Heroic CT side of Nuke in a 10-2 opening half. And the best way to describe it is that it's simply a different team that came into the server on Nuke. NAVI had been playing passive, scared, unconfident, not taking the duels they were taking earlier in other tournaments. JL was timid, not feeling it, not willing to get involved and be aggressive, but here he was dynamic with the SMGs, the rifles, getting out onto A site, getting involved in the action, while AlexiB works the other side of the map control, playing around Wonderful's impact with both the rifle and the AWP. This was the NAVI we have seen win tournaments, where they can kill you from just about any angle. The kills so spread evenly from all 4 of their all-star level players. And it wasn't like Heroic played any noticeably worse. NAVI just started winning the duels that they were losing on Mirage, and suddenly this series very quickly fired back into a 1-1 stalemate with Ancient, a map both teams loved to play, as the final map do-or-die decider. And listen, I don't think I can do this game enough justice. As of right now, at the time of recording, this is the best game of the major, and one of the best games all year. I mean, NAVI started off on an absolute warpath. Wonderful was just absolutely incredible to start off this game. Had that epic 4K with the FAMAS, should have had the ace, but Emma stole it. Had great multi-kills early. NAVI go up very early with a 5-1 stretch to start the game. You think Heroic are on the back foot. The T-side's not finding any footing. They can't get the economy right. And then they slowly start cutting their way back into this game. And honestly, for the rest of it, this early spurt from NAVI was the strongest stretch of rounds they played for the rest of the game. More on that in just a second. But as far as this T-side rest of the half for Heroic, Kicksan leading the charge, getting dynamic entries towards the cave side, really motivating his troops to get them involved, create the openings for him to work the map control. Heroic's utility was so incredible throughout the rest of these T rounds, routinely denying Emma's ability to take space towards the bottom of mid, not able to contest elbow due to good flashes, good molotovs, pushing NAVI back, forcing them to play into Donut and Red Room and concede that important map control. And it all culminated in Heroic flipping a 5-1 deficit into a 6-6 half, keeping it all tied going into the last half of play. And then we gotta start talking about NAVI. NAVI was electric this whole way through, leading the server with 23 kills. He gets started right away with this epic 3K clutch on the A bomb site in the pistol round. That final shot, that final flick with one bullet, just emphatic of the momentum that Heroic were running with throughout the rest of the game. But fair play to NAVI, after playing the force buy into save game with Heroic early, conceding those next 2 rounds, we come to the first proper gun round. It's an 8-6 scoreline. Considering the pace that this game is going, any team losing economic momentum right now could be the difference between the outcome of the match or not. So this was a must-win round for NAVI in a lot of ways, and they ran into a brick wall. They got absolutely blanked by Heroic in mid, and suddenly Bit is having to save in a 1v4 in like the first 30 seconds of the round. And because of that, NAVI do not have the money to really invest into this round. They just have the saved AK, and now you're looking at potentially going down 10-6 before you can even get your first buy one at the half. They would have been over had NAVI lost this round, I think. Instead, they get that hero rifle onto Emma, and Emma finds a miracle. I mean, this 4K from Emma was just unbelievable. And in the context of the fact that Emma was the most criticized piece of NAVI coming off of their first major win early on at the beginning of this year, the way Emma has transformed himself into truly one of the best players in the game is something so admirable. He's been the most consistent piece for NAVI throughout their entire run this year. He's always been there when Wonderful, JL, or Bit take a step back. It's Emma who shines the brightest. There's nothing more desperate than a hero AK buy in CS. And Emma finds a round win in that moment of desperation, and they manage to convert it into a couple more rounds. Suddenly Heroic are on the back foot. Are they gonna choke? Will the pedigree of NAVI shine through the brightest? And now the pressure's on for everybody. It's 9-9. Whoever wins this round breaks the other's economy. This 10th round pretty much becomes a free 11th because the other team is almost certainly gonna have to save. So everything rides on this. Both teams have everything they want. Ops and Dexter and Wonderful's hands, all the utility. This is now just what team is going to be better in this individual round. It's coming down to a late A hit. Dexter and Shush have to defend everything they hope and believe in, and they find all of the picks. They take the first 2 before Alexi can trade out Shush. NAVI comes in with the backstab from CT. Dexter finds the second op pick on Alexi B. JL eventually able to take him down and whittle it down to a 1v2, but he's in no position, no time, no health, gets backstabbed by Tessus. Heroic go up 10-9. They break the economy. What are NAVI going to do? And here, after a year of redefining everything we thought about Alexi B's career, the best IGL in the world, piloting the best core in the world, making some of the best calls in the world. Right here, if we pause, Alexi B made his greatest mistake of the tournament from a calling perspective. Now, as you can see, NAVI are not totally broke. They have a little bit of money. They can justify a few rifles, some pistols, armor, light utility. You can make the argument that they can force buy into this round. But consider the context of the game and where we're at. They would be in desperation mode. This round shifts from one they can concede to Heroic's 11th to a must-win round, because if you fully invest here and lose, you are going to have to full save on the next round. There is no other option than all Glocks, get through to the last round, and you are conceding a de facto match point to Heroic in that situation. So instead of being down 11-9 going into that round with a very full buy, because Wonderful will be able to afford an op with his current money, you are now going into the last round of play 12-9 with a worse buy, and now you have to win 3 straight just to force overtime. I cannot in any way, shape, or form see a justification for NAVI's force buy here. I said it immediately on stream when it happened that this buy was incorrect to everything I understand about Counter-Strike. And listen, I still think that ultimately NAVI could have won it, and if they win it, that's huge. You deal a huge blow to Heroic, you might force them into their own save, and the game gets much more interesting. I understand the justification there. I do think that Alexi B, had he had the time in a timeout with Blade, would not have made this choice. I think Alexi B got ahead of himself here. This buy made 0 sense at this point in the game, and honestly, it cost NAVI their tournament. You go into the next round with absolutely nothing, and now Heroic have all the momentum, all the money, and you can't get an op into Wonderful's hands unless you steal it out of Dexter's grimy mitts. And that's what ultimately feels so bad about this decision, right? Is that Wonderful is your best player in the server right now. You should be doing everything in your power to get an omp in his hands, and by going into that force, you have locked away that opportunity for the rest of the game. I think that it was short-sighted, and the results really play out in the fact that Heroic swiftly, efficiently put NAVI to bed. A miracle upset, securing top 8 at the Shanghai Major, eliminating the tournament favorites, and shutting the door on the would-be era of NAVI. God, I love Counter-Strike. Anyways, there will definitely be a separate video on what's next for NAVI in the postseason after I take a goddamn break. So let's move on to our final series of the day, the Last Chance Saloon, Faze taking on Furia. And I'm gonna be straight up with you. Watching the series, I was in bed. I had ended stream trying to get some reasonable sleep for once in the last couple of weeks. So I was just kind of watching casually, mildly toasted. And I didn't think Faze were going to be able to do it, like straight up. This first map from Faze against Furia, Kerrigan said it best, they didn't even show up. Just like against G2, Furia blitzed them every single chance they got at Inferno, and Faze simply didn't come to play. No one outside of Frozen and mildly Brokey produced any kind of fragging power on their CT side. The sites were open and free, come one, come all, we're not guarding anything. And it looked like Faze were prepped for the collapse. And consider everything that roster has been dealing with lately, I think they would have been justified to just kind of bow their heads, exit quietly, lick the wounds, and reassess for another season. But Faze, they're just not that team. Like, not to overly narrativize, though I do love to do it, Faze have never been that kind of team to just fully capitulate and not at least one point in a series remind you who they are. And going into Dust 2, I really think their backs were up against the wall. I think this is a map that Furia have been very good on recently, and Fallen especially has always produced good numbers on it. And I think with everything that we've seen out of Furia, they were prepped for a 2-0 advancement. But instead, Rain, Rops, even Kerrigan woke up in a big way to battle back into this series. They did their best to stem the bleeding early on their CT side, as Dust 2 can be like that sometimes. Furia's T sides are always fast, frenetic, chaotic. They'll hit the B site, they'll hit you in mid, they'll go out all the way through mid, then rotate back and go catwalk. They will take advantage of any opportunity to jump you like it's a street fight. But speaking of, Faze were ready for that kind of brawl on the second half. Faze won both pistols in this game, they ran away with that momentum on their own T side, and dude, I have to give so much love to Kerrigan for the way he played on this Dust 2. Multiple times, going straight through mid, on the mid to B split, getting up into B side, getting double kill entries for his team. And this is Dust 2, right? If you blow open the B side, the CTs have to save. In both of these rounds, the other remaining Furia players have to immediately try and save that op. That's just the state of Dust 2. Faze simply held Furia to 2 CT side rounds, kept them totally capped and closed off, continued to exploit that B site routinely through the half, holding Yuri to just 1 kill on his CT side efforts, and Faze battled back to win the second game 13-9, which means we're pulling up to Mirage. It's the final game of the elimination stage. Will Faze or Furia survive to see top 8? We have talked extensively both on this channel, in the community. It's been a prevalent thing in the discourse around Faze. Rops. Rops was the best player in CS2 for the first 3 months. He was the first guy to show us what can be done in this new game. He led the way alongside players like m0NESY, then eventually Donk and ZywOo. But Rops rapidly dropped back to earth. Keep in mind that Rops, when he first popped up on the scene, is one of the most mechanically gifted players we have ever seen in Counter-Strike. We all know what Rops' potential is, and when he finally realized it in this iteration of Faze with Kerrigan, previously in Mousesports, also with Kerrigan, we saw what Rops could do. So I never at any point was doubtful about Rops' ability to come back, to show us that superstar form. It was always on Rops to be able to find that when he needs it. Yes, he could be inconsistent, but he picked one hell of a time to light literally on fire and power Faze through a 10-2 opening T-side half on Mirage, keeping Faze's tournament dream alive pretty much single-handedly. 17 kills, 6 deaths, a 2.32 rating, 130 ADR. He said, everyone get out of the way. I'm here to drive. You guys make noise. I will lurk around the extremities, and I will pick Furia apart single-handedly. And then you add on to it. Going on to the second half, they win the pistol round. They convert match points on the very next round. It's now 12-2. Furia back against the very edge, dude. You think there's no way this game is going to be over. Faze did the impossible, the miracle comeback. This is it. But Furia's individuals came online in a big way and made this a very legitimate comeback. They ran off 8 straight T-side round wins with some truly epic heroics along the way, whether it's like JesseTiv, who very early on had this amazing 4K round and ending with a 1v2 clutch on the A site. I mean, dude, JesseTiv, for everything we have said about him throughout the year, he had a very poor showing early on in the major. In the elimination stage, he's been one of the best players in the world, really capitalizing on that top 10 form throughout the year. I have no notes. I have no criticisms for JesseTiv and his performance in this series. He was impactful. He was great throughout. He was not the reason that Furia lost. They simply got beat by a Faze team that found the correct form at the correct time. And Skulls. What a vindicating moment for Skulls, because I even fell victim to this. I thought Skulls wasn't ever going to be able to deliver on that promise. I thought in Liquid, we saw the limitation of his game, that he wouldn't be able to recover. When he went back to Furia, I thought it was a mistake. I thought Furia should have shopped around for something better. But I absolutely have to echo Richard Lewis's sentiment on this. If Furia had managed to win this game, Skulls 1v4 clutch against all odds on the A bomb site should be a graffiti. It's one of the best clutches of the year. It's one of the best plays at the major. Donk ace, JesseTiv ace aside, this is one of the very best plays of the year. Simply aim mapping against Faze in a must-win situation, trapped on a ramp. His spray transfers from triple box to the second, 2 stairs to the third, ends it with the 1 tap on Kerrigan, who has no idea what just blindsided his team. Furia did everything in their power to bring this game back and try and take it to overtime. And in the end, it wasn't enough. After 8 straight rounds, on the 9th attempt, Furia finally ran into the brick wall on the A site, couldn't get any penetration, couldn't get the bomb down. Kerrigan from Catwalk takes out the bomb plant, stranding the other Furia players with not enough time. The picks from Rain, Rops, they come in. JesseTiv left in connector, 1 man alone, not enough time to affect his team's fate. And Faze somehow, against everything else in the world, qualify to top A in the major. And listen, I don't mind being vulnerable, being honest with you guys. I'm an emotional person, you know. I am one of those people. I'm very easily affected by these kinds of things. I get very caught up in the moment, and to see the emotion on Kerrigan's face really got to me. You know, obviously Kerrigan's coming into this major with the tragedy of losing his brother, and you know, this channel would not exist without my brothers, Justin and Jesse. Justin literally streams with me every night. He helps me out with videos routinely. I literally can't imagine being in Kerrigan's position and losing someone like that. Like, I'm getting emotional right now just thinking about it. To not only deal with that kind of tragedy, but then to deal with the pressures of being in his position as one of the best minds Counter-Strike has ever produced, to have to once again compete and show that this team has something more to offer, and to be fully at the end, at the limit of what you guys can do, getting destroyed in these maps, and then to lose early on in the series and battle it back. I can't imagine what Kerrigan felt when that final round went through. And it is one of the best storylines in esports, the way they have battled through adversity at this tournament. Maybe Faze will find magic, maybe they'll bow out early. They have to play Vitality in top 8. But man, my sincerest feelings, condolences go out to Kerrigan and his family and what they're dealing with right now. Finn is one of the most important parts of Counter-Strike. He's someone who has inspired me routinely throughout my career, and I'm just really happy that they're still able to play this well. Whew. All right, I had to take a second there and reset to try and finish out the video. But yeah, man, I don't really have much more else to say. The playoffs are ready. Around the same time, I'll get my pick'ems out for the playoffs. Man, I love Counter-Strike. And also, guys, take a second. Loved ones, your friends, family, whoever you have around you in your circles, reach out to them and let them know that you're there, you care, and that they matter. Because, you know, you can't take anything for granted. I'm just going to skip all the pleasantries. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys soon for another video. Have a great day.